Ben, the background music is a flow music we are testing here. So you recommend to stop it for any changes or it would on?
Yeah, I think it's working. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Shahidul Haq. I'm currently a faculty in multiple universities, but I used to be the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh. But before that, I had the pleasure of serving almost a decade back. So it is my absolute privilege to moderate this distinguished event to launch the IOM's 2024 report. The new edition of IOM's flagship report series is perhaps the most important and has the power also to influence the policies. It has also power to transform lives of individuals. That's where the real chemistry of migration is. While also provide tangible societal solutions to communities' issues and problems. Migration remains an important facet of global political, economical, and social landscape. As highlighted in the World Migration Report, international remittances supplies families and local communities in countries of origin, fueling development, economic growth, and climate resilience. Migrant workers and diaspora are driving human development globally through their hard-earned money. But there are much more than just remittances, which has been analyzed in the report, which has become the global reference for migration, both academicians and the policymakers. Now, in this new edition, we also see critical new issues that has been included, like regular migration pathways, migration and human security, and migration, food insecurity, and climate change, very relevant for us today. It is in light of these realities that I commend this World Migration Report, a flagship publication, and IOM's significant contribution to improving the understanding and debate on migration globally. The report series has highlighted utility and impact being used as a fact-checking tool to counter misinformation on migration and migrants. It also helps governments to manage migration more effectively by providing accurate, reliable, rigorous, and informations and analysis that are key migration topics, including policy challenges raised by the emerging migration issues. I am therefore confident and hopeful that the World Migration Report 2024 will provide additional perspectives that ensure a more complete understanding of this complex phenomena. In order to manage migration for the benefit of all nations around the globe. At this stage, please allow me to introduce the IOM Chief of Mission to Bangladesh, Mr. Abdus Sattar Isoev, to provide a welcome remark. Abdus Sattar, you have the floor.
Honorable Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, His Excellency Dr. Hassan Mahmud, my Director General, Ambassador and Head of the Delegations of the European Union to Bangladesh, His Excellency Mr. Charles Whitley, Acting High Commissioner of Australia in Bangladesh, Ms. Nadia Simpson, the Country Director of the World Bank for Bangladesh and Bhutan, Mr. Abdullah Isak, who we are waiting to join us in a few minutes. Representative Ambassador Haas, representative from the government, development partners, NGO, civil societies, friends from media. Very good afternoon to you all and welcome to this launch of the global event of the World Migration Report 2024. This new edition of the World Migration Report is 12th of this series, which has been produced biannually since 2000 and which has become over the years the key reference report on migration globally. This report indeed provides much needed information on migration and mobility in clear and accurate terms and in a context where migration remains deeply affected by misinformation and politizations. The World Migration Report is grounded in our obligations as the United Nations Migration Agency to demystify the complexity and diversity of human mobility through evidence-based data, research, and analysis. The outline of, it was outlined by Director General in her foreword of the report underscores IOM's continued obligation to uphold the fundamental rights and our mission to support those migrants and who are most in need. A recent IOM's survey have highlighted that the World Migration Report is one of the most widely resources used by the member states globally. And as found in the evaluation of the World Migration Report series, government officials and IOM staff use the report as the key knowledge product and reference report on migration, and an official of IOM staff and using that as a product and relevant reports on migration, including to inform their work, policies, program delivery, and including within the UN system widely. Beyond member states, the World Migration Report is also widely used by media, researchers, students, and other UN agencies. Data speak for themselves. As of December 2023, the previous edition of the report, the World Migration Report 2022, resulted in over 1.5 million views in microsite, more than 2,000 mentions in media worldwide, and nearly 3,000 mentions in research and policy publications, and including those produced by the member state and other UN agencies. Such results and success are the result of genuine collaboration, both within IOM and also in our external collaborations in the research and global communication communities. It is thanks to this collaboration focused on the innovation for users and readers, as well as forging best practices for scaling up more broadly. The World Migration Report is now much more than PDF settings in a virtual shelf. We will hear more on this during today's event. I would like to thank DigiPop for making this decision to launch this World Migration Report in Bangladesh. It just goes to show how important Bangladesh is for IOM work and how we are in a perfect place to take forward her vision reflected through our strategic objectives: saving lives and protecting people on the move, driving solution for displacements, and facilitating regular migrations, facilitating regular pathway for migration. Thank you, DG. Thank you.
At this stage, may I request Honorable Foreign Minister and Distinguished Director General to come to the podium, please. It is my great delight to introduce our keynote speaker, IOM Director General Amy Pope. As I have already said that I have a long association with IOM, so is with the Distinguished Director General, whom I met right after or before he was about to assume the responsibilities in Geneva. As you all know, Ms. Pope is the first woman to hold the post of IOM's 73-year history as the Director General. She took over head of the organization in October 2023 following an election victory voted by the IOM member states. Ms. Pope brings a wealth of experience in addressing complex migration issues and passion for changing the global narrative of migration about the people on the move. Building on reforms, he began implementing as IOM's Deputy Director General for Management and Reform, transforming IOM's operations as well as structure, and the very important, the resourcing of the structure to deliver on the new strategies and priorities. Before joining IOM, DG Pope served in senior positions in the United States government on migration, including in the areas of countering trafficking in person, resettling refugees and the vulnerable people, and preparing communities to respond and adapt to the climate-related crisis. Madam Director General, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, ministers, ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished colleagues and friends. Thank you, Professor Shahid, for moderating today. We're so grateful to have you in this role as moderator, but we are even more grateful for your leadership on the issue of migration, for your service to your government, and for your service to IOM. And thank you to our donors who have made today possible, including Australia, Ireland, and the United States, for the support today. And I want to thank our other speakers, Acting High Commissioner Simpson, Ambassador Whitley, and Country Director Sek from the World Bank. Thank you for your participation, but more importantly, thank you for the work that you're doing. And most importantly, we are grateful to the government of Bangladesh for the opportunity to launch our flagship publication, the World Migration Report, here in Dhaka. We're especially honored and grateful to have Foreign Minister Dr. Hassan Mahmood here today. Your Excellency, thank you, not only for being here with us today, directly from Gambia, but also for your service and for your leadership on the issue of migration globally. Now, we issue the World Migration Report every 2 years, but this is the first time that we have decided to launch it here outside of Geneva. It was a very intentional decision, and there are many good reasons for it, but perhaps most prominently, we're launching our global report here from Bangladesh because Bangladesh is arguably the birthplace of the migration governance framework under which we operate today. It was 8 years ago that the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina became the first leader to advocate for a global migration framework with the Secretary General and with the General Assembly. And 2 years later, after much blood, sweat, and tears, in 2018, United Nations member states endorsed the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration in Morocco. I had the opportunity to meet with the Honorable Prime Minister today, and I know that she has a deep understanding of the positive benefits that migration can bring to communities, particularly when it contributes to economic growth. So it should come as no surprise to anyone in the room that Bangladesh became the first champion country of the Global Compact for Migration. So launching our global World Migration Report here in Bangladesh just makes sense. It also makes sense because in this extraordinary country, we have all of the elements of a complex migration landscape that we see all over the world. The impacts of climate change, shifting age demographics, the global demand for labor, the work on safe and regular pathways, remittances that contribute a significant amount to the national economy, and tragically, countless examples of how irregular migration can make people more vulnerable. In fact, 12% of the deaths of those crossing the Mediterranean this year have been nationals of this country. We also see here in Bangladesh, Mr. Foreign Minister and other distinguished representatives of the government of Bangladesh, that you are a country that is on the pathway to reduce inequality and to enhance prosperity, and in part by embracing a vision that includes harnessing the benefits of migration. And in Bangladesh and in places all over the world, there is clear evidence that migration can help drive prosperity. At the same time, this discussion needs clarity. It needs evidence-based analysis. It needs to operate from a set of clear facts. And we believe that the 2024 edition of the Global World Migration Report will help to deliver those facts, to inform audiences all over the world about the robust evidence that supports our work, to offer new knowledge about today's complex migration landscape. So today, I want to do three things. I want to give you an overview of the state of migration in the world today. I want to outline how the World Migration Report helps us understand that migration landscape, including how growing migration inequality is impacting communities around the world. And I want to outline how migration can actually fuel better development outcomes and create more prosperity, but only if we increase our investments in facilitating more regular pathways for migration. So we start with the state of migration today. Now, anybody who reads the newspaper anywhere in the world will be fed a very polarizing narrative about migration. It creates a distorted picture of the diverse and complex migration landscape. If you look at the news reports, you would believe that all migration is happening at the US-Mexican border or in the Mediterranean. But ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, that is so far from the truth. In fact, the relative impact of international migration, if we measure it against the global population, it's remained relatively stable for many years. Worldwide, there are more than 281 million migrants, about 3.6% of the global population. And most of that migration is regional. People who leave one country and go to a neighboring country or one that is nearby. For example, over 40% of the world's international migrants are from Asia, but over half of these migrants are remaining within the continent. In Africa, it's a similar story. Most international migrants from Africa are moving within Africa. In Latin America, countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, and Brazil are some of the primary destination countries for migrants within that region. Now, in addition to being regional, most migration is directly related to work. About 170 million people around the world are migrant workers, and about 87% of them are working in upper middle income or high income countries. Some of the largest migration corridors in the world have migrant workers moving from South Asia to countries in the Gulf, such as from India to the United Arab Emirates, where 88% of the population is foreign-born, or from countries like Bangladesh to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, another reason why so many people move is simply to better their education. I can say that myself as an exchange student who went to Paris to learn French many, many years ago. But more than 6 million people are pursuing their studies in other countries. And many of these people will take up work opportunities within the same countries. Others will return home, and they're bringing new qualifications, new skills, new languages back to their home countries. And our new report shows that the number of international students has almost tripled over the last 20 years. And the gender gap among international students is increasingly narrowing. But unfortunately, the gender gap for international migrants overall is growing, and it's larger than it ever has been. And we have to do more to reverse this trend. It's not just because it's a nice thing to do. It's because years of research shows us how successfully empowering migrant women is central to sustainable development goals at both the individual and at the household level. In many cases, migrant women are the key drivers of better development outcomes. In fact, women migrant workers send a greater share of their wages back to their countries of origin than their male counterparts do, which is driving growth in their communities. And back home, Remittance recipients are predominantly women, and they're investing in education and in healthcare. Household savings have also increased as a result of women receiving these remittances. So investing more in gender-responsive efforts not only tackles gender discrimination and helps address structural gender inequalities, it pays long-term dividends in terms of sustainable development for communities around the world. Now, one of the biggest problems that we're seeing around the world is an unprecedented number of internally displaced people, triggered largely by conflict, by climate change, and by disaster. Today, a record number of more than 71 million people have been displaced within the borders of their country, 75% of them in just 10 countries. But displacement is different depending on the region. Here in Asia, including right here in Bangladesh, disasters such as floods, cyclones, wildfires, earthquakes are driving internal displacement in increasing numbers. Of the countries with the largest numbers of people who were displaced by disasters in 2022, 5 of them were here in Asia. And this continues a longer-term trend of displacement in Asia, unlike any other in the world. So one of our strategic priorities is to drive solutions to displacement, particularly as a result of disasters fueled by climate change. We have to be much more proactive in this area. We cannot wait until millions of people have been displaced when there are ways to enable communities to adapt proactively so that they can be more stable and have more choices. Now, climate change is driving more new displacement than ever before, but the biggest problem is still conflict. We see that here in Bangladesh, where nearly 1 million Rohingya people have been forced to flee their homes because of ongoing conflict in their home country. And I met many of these people yesterday when I visited Cox's Bazar. But we also see that the impact on the neighboring countries, many of which are facing their own development challenges, can reverse development gains. So it's critical that in cases of displacement fueled by conflict, the international community continues to recognize and provide support to those countries that are hosting large numbers of refugees and vulnerable migrants. We see the same phenomenon playing out in Africa, where conflict continues to displace more people than any other factor. Since the current conflict broke out in Sudan, 8.6 million people in the region have been forced to flee their homes. That's 8.6 million people in just 1 year. It is one of the largest displacement crises since World War II and the biggest displacement crises on the planet today. In another massive conflict-driven displacement crisis, about 40% of Ukraine's entire population was displaced in 2022, 7 million people. In all, about a quarter of our work around the world is focused on supporting displaced communities around the world. Now, the World Migration Report points out another troubling aspect about migration, which is a growing global migration inequality. Now, I explained before how the total proportion of migrants hasn't changed significantly over the last several years. But what the data is showing us is that most migration is now taking place between relatively wealthy countries, and that is a change from the past. The migration pathways that are available for people from less developed countries have narrowed in recent years, arguably driving more people to resort to irregular migration pathways. Because the jobs haven't disappeared. In fact, in 30 of the top economies all across the world, we saw labor shortages that cost $1.3 trillion in losses to those economies. So if we do not address the inequality in terms of safe, regular, orderly pathways between less developed and more developed economies, people communities, and countries will fall further behind. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear that migrants are driving human development and poverty alleviation. One way they do it is through their remittances and sending money back home. So the good news is that international remittances continue to flow back to low and middle income countries, despite predictions that they would have stopped or slowed down during the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, they've continued to go up. From 2000 to 2022, remittances rose by a staggering 650%, from 128 billion US dollars to 831 billion dollars. Now, the reason that is so important to so many of you in the room is that for low and middle income countries, remittances far exceed foreign direct investment. Remittances also far exceed any overseas development assistance. Last year, migrants from Bangladesh sent remittances worth 21.9 billion US dollars to the country, and that's just remittances that were sent back through formal channels. The amount of money that is coming back into the country may actually be much higher. What that means for all of you in the room who are investing in economies is that investing in safe and regular pathways for jobs for migrants is an investment that goes well beyond just traditional development assistance. And we know that migrant workers and the diaspora are feeding, housing, and educating their families. And from afar, these migrants are strengthening the economies of their communities, of their regions, and of their countries. So that's why if we want to create a world that is more sustainable, if we want to create outcomes that are more equal, if we want to avoid leaving people behind, we must harness the power of migration. Now, we've seen reams of evidence of how migration will help grow economies. Recently, The Economist had a cover story in which it noted that the extraordinarily strong, and that's a quote from the article, economy in the United States post-COVID is at least in part credited to migration into the United States. And that's a migrant labor force happening in all sectors, from agriculture to healthcare to engineering and other sectors. At all skill levels, we are seeing migration fuel prosperity. And as the World Bank has noted, more than 80% of migrants are moving because they're searching for better opportunities. They're looking for higher wages. They're looking for access to better services. They're looking, in some cases, for more personal safety, even when they will not qualify as a refugee under the existing definition in the convention. And the demand for migrant workers is only going to grow. This is not just about people seeking better opportunities. This is about companies all over the world looking for more people to do the jobs. They're looking for talent in every skill sector, in every economy across the world. And we know that demographic changes are only going to drive the need for more international migration. By 2050, people over the age of 65 are going to represent nearly 40% of the population in Japan and in the Republic of Korea. And Italy, Spain, Greece, and Portugal, they're not far behind. Now, on the flip side of the demographic equation, the world now has the largest youth population in history, 1.8 billion people between the ages of 10 and 24, and most are living in countries where the economic opportunities for formal work simply do not exist. So if we're going to bridge the equality gap, we need to bring a forward-thinking, strategic, and comprehensive approach to development. And migration should be part of that approach. It should enable people to choose migration, in most cases, instead of being forced to move or instead of moving through an irregular channel. We can and we must connect migration, development assistance, livelihood opportunities, and even urban planning into one comprehensive approach. Human mobility can then be more equal through pathways like geographic free movement arrangements. And if we do that strategically, if we do that with a rights-based approach that is not exploitative or extractive of communities from less developed economies, those fragile economies can grow stronger, and the growing economies can expand more equally. And in all of this, vulnerable communities, including women and children, will be better protected. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, excellencies, we want countries like Bangladesh to continue to grow and prosper. We want development outcomes to be more equal. We want people in fragile economies to have the chance for success. To get there, though, we need to devote more time and more resources to what we know works. And that means dedicating more time and resources to facilitating more regular pathways for migration. Now, the benefits that the world will get from this would be immense. Number one, the people themselves will be less vulnerable to exploitation. More migrant lives will be protected. What we see right now is that people moving through irregular channels are more likely to be subjected to violence, to exploitation, and to abuse. We also know that the business model of this $10 billion smuggling industry will be thwarted if people can directly apply to a safe, regular, and orderly migration pathway, rather than relying on a smuggler or trafficker to facilitate that pathway. We also know that public confidence in migration will go up. When people are coming on an airplane with a job to do work that is valuable to an entire community, no matter where it is in the world, the public is often grateful. They won't say it out loud, but they will say it quietly. There's no better example of that than when we look at COVID and the number of migrants around the world who provided frontline assistance when everybody else was staying at home. We also know that we are contributing to the development of the migrant herself. We are contributing to the development of the country that she is working in. And we're contributing to the development of the country that she is coming from. In the long term, the evidence is showing us that regular pathways will better protect migrant rights. It will enable governments to better plan for and manage migrant movements, and it will support development in countries of destination and origin. The countries that best understand the migration landscape, those who are proactively and strategically and very deliberately using migration as a tool for development, will be the ones that are best positioned to tackle the challenges of this decade, but most importantly, to tackle the challenges that we know are yet to come. So, as I close, I want to thank all of my colleagues at the International Organization for Migration who worked on this report and all of those who worked on the launch. This is a vital project for the world right now, and to anyone at IOM who participated in it, thank you. I also want to thank our international partners whose data we used as we put together this analysis, and to our colleagues within academic communities and who are working in research or who are otherwise contributing to the great work of this report. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we know what a precarious situation the world is in today, and it is critical that we look for ways to collaborate on what should be a common goal: to see everyone flourish peacefully and safely. But right now, the political rhetoric does not match that reality. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous for all people, and it's dangerous for all economies. The world needs migration, but we need migration that is strategic, that's informed by data and by evidence, and that brings a whole of society approach. So through this edition of the World Migration Report, we are seeking to shape a conversation and a set of policy outcomes that focus on the data, that focus on the evidence, that focus on the truth. And that way we can achieve better migration outcomes for more people. And we hope that you will learn from it, that you will use it, that you will share it, that it will form the work of everybody in this room who works on migration, and that in doing so, together, we will make this world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General, for a very evidence-based, policy-oriented presentation. I'm sure that these will have far-reaching consequences in the global debate on migration. Madam Director General, I see that you have already gone into the realm of moving the toxic migration narrative into a more healthy, productive, and humane narrative. For that, on behalf of Bangladesh, let me congratulate you. This debate is missing from the global trend, and it needs to be brought back. Thank you very much, Madam Director General. At this stage, please allow me to call upon Mr. Adrian Kitimbu to share the digital tool of the World Migration Report 2024. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hack, for the introduction. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to start by thanking you all for joining us here today for the launch of the World Migration Report 2024. I am especially excited to present to you the various World Migration Report 2024 digital tools, which the Director General just referred to in her speech, and that we have developed to supplement the report and with the aim of increasing the report's reach as well as its accessibility. And for this new edition of the report, we continue to embrace the opportunities that technology brings and have developed these tools to get key data and information in the World Migration Report into the hands of busy users, tailoring them for policymakers, for educators, for media professionals, and fact checkers. Now, I would like to begin with the World Migration Report 2024 Interactive. This is a platform that was initially developed for the World Migration Report 2020 and designed to present some of the key data and information in the World Migration Report in an interactive and visually engaging way. This platform has been highly successful and has gone on to win multiple international design awards over the last few years. For the World Migration Report 2024, we have updated and expanded the interactive, and users can visit the microsite and explore and engage with a range of data, including global international migrant stock data, including a new visualization of this data disaggregated by gender across different age groups. We again, as you see on my slide here, include and update the long-term international remittances data for the top sending and receiving countries globally. And for this edition, we are also excited to present another new visualization on predictive indicators, which users can explore on a tile map and a table, both of which present data from various indexes, as well as migration and displacement data that can be highly useful in assisting decision makers to better anticipate some of the key migration challenges as well as opportunities ahead. This interactive, again, includes long-term migrant stock data across regions as well as migration corridors, which provide a snapshot of how migration patterns have evolved into significant foreign-born populations in specific destination countries. This year, and for the first time, we are also releasing the 2024 edition of the World Migration Report in HTML. This is the first ever IOM report in HTML, and we are thrilled about the increased accessibility that this format brings, including for people who use assistive technology. This format will also provide a better reading experience for those of you who like to read using your mobile devices. Having the World Migration Report in multiple languages is also something that's highly important to us, as this is really key to further increasing its reach, its accessibility, as well as its utility. With the support of various donors, we continue to translate the report into multiple languages, and for this edition, translations are ongoing for all UN languages as well as other language outputs such as Swahili and Portuguese. We will work on even more language outputs as funding becomes available. Now, as I mentioned in my opening, we have developed a range of toolkits that are tailored for specific audiences that draw on the contents of the report. Among these is the World Migration Education Toolkit, another award-winning platform that contains a set of modules to support teachers around the world as they seek to provide balanced, accurate, and interesting learning materials on the fundamentals of migration and migrants for teenagers as well as young adults. And in collaboration with various partners, we also developed the Policy Toolkit to assist busy policy officials to utilize the contents of the report in a wide range of policy settings. The toolkit contains multiple useful resources and information, including key migration data and trends, cross-cutting migration issues, and users can explore knowledge production in the policy cycle, among others. Finally, and as the Director General mentioned, some of these tools are crafted to help dispel myths and misinformation about migration. We have worked on a fact checkers toolkit, a simple toolkit designed to help fact checkers around the world to address the myths and misinformation about migration using the content of the World Migration Report series. The fact checkers toolkit, as well as the education and policy toolkit, will all be further updated and expanded. Now, I will end by encouraging all of you to check out whichever toolkit is useful for your work or is of interest to you. All of these toolkits and interactive platform are freely available via the link on the screen or the QR code on the flyers that have been distributed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian, for guiding us into the tech world as to how we could possibly go deeper into the report. On the stage, may I invite Ms. Nadia Simpson, Acting High Commissioner for Australia in Bangladesh, to the podium to make her statement.
Thank you very much. Honourable Foreign Minister Dr. Hassan Mahmood MP, Director General Pope, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues. Thank you for inviting Australia to be part of the global launch of the latest edition of the World Migration Report, IOM's flagship publication. The forces of migration are on full display in Bangladesh, which makes it a perfect location for the global launch of the World Migration Report. Bangladesh is the 6th largest migrant sending country globally and the 8th largest remittance receiving country in the world. It is also generously hosting over 1 million displaced Rohingya from Myanmar. The World Migration Report is an important tool to ground migration discourse globally, regionally and nationally in data, facts and truth, helping to demystify the complexity of human mobility through evidence-based data, research and analysis. As migration increasingly takes a prominent place in political discourse around the world, we welcome this report as one tool that seeks to normalise the migration narrative, to place it in its historical context, and to address much of the misinformation and disinformation which has a tendency to take hold in this discourse. As a country shaped and invigorated by the diverse cultures and talents of millions of migrants, Australia is testament to the benefits that can be realised by safe, orderly and regular migration pathways. The World Migration Report 2024 highlights the importance of these pathways and notes that the imperative for safe, orderly and regular migration is not just a national issue, it's a global necessity that requires international cooperation and commitment. Australia is steadfast in our commitment to responding to the ongoing Rohingya humanitarian crisis in Myanmar and Bangladesh, in partnership with the Government of Bangladesh and the global humanitarian community, including IOM. Australia acknowledges the significant support the government and people of Bangladesh have provided in hosting over 1 million Rohingya from Myanmar, and we acknowledge the impact on the local communities. Our contribution to the crisis in Myanmar and Bangladesh is Australia's largest humanitarian response. We welcome initiatives to preserve and build the resilience of Rohingya refugees, including increasing Rohingya self-reliance and livelihoods through education and skills training and through more durable shelter and infrastructure materials. As co-chair of the Strategic Executive Group, the SEG, and responsible for the management of half the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar, IOM plays a key leadership role in preserving the dignity, safety and protection of Rohingya and provides core services across a range of sectors during their temporary stay in Bangladesh. Australia remains gravely concerned about the situation in the Rohingya's home country of Myanmar. The February 2021 military coup plunged the country into a deep political and humanitarian crisis, with far-reaching consequences for the neighbours of Myanmar and the region. Australia will continue to use every lever at our disposal to press the military regime for the cessation of violence, the release of those unjustly detained, unimpeded humanitarian access, and a return to the path of democracy. We maintain our strong support for ASEAN's efforts to resolve the crisis in Myanmar and call on the regime to implement the 5-point consensus. Australia welcomes the United Nations Secretary-General's appointment of Australian former Foreign Minister Julie Bishop as the United Nations Special Envoy on Myanmar. Ms. Bishop's appointment comes at a critical time as the situation in Myanmar continues to worsen, and her appointment will support joined-up efforts towards a peaceful resolution in the interests of the peoples of Myanmar, including the Rohingya. The challenges imposed by irregular migration, particularly that of trafficking and people smuggling, are beyond the power of one country to solve. They require close regional and global cooperation. Alongside Indonesia, our Bali Process co-chair, Australia is seeking to work on practical measures to help combat people smuggling, trafficking in persons, and related transnational crime through the Bali Process, with the support of the founding member organisations such as IOM. Australia welcomes all parties' ongoing engagement in Bali Process activities, and the Bali Process continues to provide an important forum to address people smuggling and human trafficking in our region. In closing, Australia appreciates IOM's global leadership on migration, and we have been pleased to once again support IOM's publication of the World Migration Report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Now, may I invite His Excellency Charles Whitley, Ambassador and the head of the delegation for the European Union to Bangladesh. Yes.
Thank you so much, distinguished Professor Hock. Honourable Minister, distinguished Director General, great pleasure to have you in Dhaka. And dear colleagues and friends, I want to begin, first of all, by paying tribute to IOM on several counts. First of all, that you choose Bangladesh to do this launch this time. It's fantastic you did that. And as you said, Director General, there are many good reasons for being in Dhaka on this issue. And also to IOM for their great partnership here. We really value the partnership as EU. We're engaged on several programs, and we're very pleased with the progress that we make together, also with, of course, the government of Bangladesh. And I wanted to mention 3 statistics which, for me, inform the EU's approach, not only in Bangladesh, but globally. And the first statistic is 380,000 individuals. 380,000 individuals who tried to reach the EU illegally last year, and often at great risk to their own lives. The second statistic is the fact that we have rescued as EU, through our operations led by Frontex, over 600,000 people from the Mediterranean Sea since 2015, which is a horrifying percentage, or a horrifying figure, and as was mentioned before, quite a high percentage of those people trying to get to Europe are Bangladeshis who have also perished or disappeared in the Mediterranean. The third statistic, though, or third figure, is the fact that the average age in Europe, the median age, is 44, and the median age in Bangladesh is 27. So we are a rapidly aging society who really needs an infusion of young people with the right talents and skills to help our society continue to prosper. So all these statistics are in the mix when we look at how the EU is trying to shape its response with others to the challenges of migration, which are complex and interrelated and so forth. And as we approach the European parliamentary elections in June, from the 6th till the 9th of June, the toxic nature of the debate around migration is ever more evident. We all know that there are parties in Europe who are moving to the right, who are using migration as a political football, and none of that is healthy when we want to have a debate based on facts and statistics. And that's why this report really helps to have an informed, enlightened debate to try to counter these kind of toxic discussions that are happening also in Europe amongst certain political parties. So at the moment, we're at a sort of crossing point as we await the elections in June. But in the meantime, the European Union has tried to take the initiative and steer the discussion and steer the policy making. And one of those key policies is the new EU Pact on Migration and Asylum, which Commissioner Johansson, our Home Affairs Minister, announced a few weeks ago, which seeks to create a robust system towards, in terms of migration and illegal migration, but also a fair one. And key aspects of this new pact are more efficient and faster procedures at our external borders, so new qualification rules to clarify the criteria for granting international protection and the rights and obligations of refugees, hand in hand with updated rules on reception conditions, but also a key principle which is part of the toxic political debate, and that is solidarity. So 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of our member states shouldn't bear the brunt alone of dealing with these 380,000 people trying to reach the EU shores. Solidarity is a key principle, not beloved by all the governments of Europe, but one that means that it will be perceived by the citizens of Europe as fairer and not placing a disproportionate burden on any given EU member state. So we hope that this will create a less toxic debate around the issue of migration in Europe, particularly as we approach those elections in June. But alongside the life-saving efforts that I mentioned, the 600,000 people that have been rescued from the Mediterranean, we must develop durable solutions to displacement that address the root causes and provide long-term stability for displaced populations and migrants. And this includes supporting voluntary return and reintegration, local integration and resettlement, along the lines of what we support with the IOM and the Pratasha program. But the priority of saving lives is at the core of our humanitarian response, and that involves not only rescue and relief operations, but also the provision of healthcare, shelter, and basic services to those in critical situations. As we work to address those immediate needs, we must also focus on ensuring safe, legal, and dignified routes for those forced to flee their homes or those choosing to migrate. And this is essential to prevent the loss of lives during perilous journeys and to combat the exploitation by human traffickers. And finally, a point on global cooperation and solidarity, and this is also, of course, very key. Challenges of displacement and migration are not confined to any one region, as the report makes very clear, but are global phenomena that demand a coordinated international response, including through the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration. We must continue to strengthen partnerships between governments, international organizations, civil society and the private sector to mobilize resources and implement effective humanitarian and migration policies and practices. And I think we were very happy in November when the European Commission organized an international conference in Brussels to create a global alliance on countering migrant smuggling with a call to action building on reinforced cooperation between key partners, and Bangladesh was represented at that event. So we hope to convene and bring together states and other stakeholders to make sure we have the most effective response at the international level to these phenomena. So I'll end there just again by saying thank you for the invitation and thank you for an excellent report that we will look forward to digesting and also, of course, discussing with our bosses in Brussels. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. In the whole migratory process, migrants are central. So at this stage, the World Migration Report video will be shown, which captures few of the migrants' voices. Good. I have an instruction that that voices will wait for a while. At this stage, I will go ahead invite Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh, Dr. Hassan Mahmood.
Thank you very much, Madam Director General of IOM, Ms. Amy Pope, ambassadors from different countries, IOM country representative of different international and national organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. It is a pleasure to join you at the launch of World Migration Report 2024. Indeed, this morning I've come from abroad after 14 days of tour to different countries. And my body clock was not allowing me to come here. So I did put alarm and it rang, then it stopped. That's why I apologize at the beginning to the Director General for my late arrival. But I came on time before the launch, before 1 o'clock. So this is great pleasure for me to be here with you all people. And I want to register my thanks to IOM, in particular Director General, Ms. Amy Pope, to launch this report in Dhaka. First ever report launching outside Geneva within last 73 years' time. Thank you. And I want to thank Amy Pope to take the trouble to travel to Bangladesh and to launch this report. Distinguished audience, the 5 major takeaways from the report from our perspective are: first, the actual number of international migrants remains below 400 million, constituting only 3.6% of the human population. Female migrants comprise 48% of the people on the move across borders. Most people, however, choose to live within their national borders. These facts deserve to be highlighted again and again to dispel or disprove the negative xenophobia impression about migration propagated to certain vested quarters. Second, the regular pathways for international migration are getting narrowed down for developing countries, while they keep broadening for developed countries. This does not correlate with the demand side of labor market in advanced economies with aging societies or skill shortages. I would urge IOM, along with its partners, to keep exploring possibilities for widening legal migration pathways in parallel with its current preoccupation with the return of migrants from certain destination or transit countries. Third, the importance of migration as a vehicle for sustainable development is reinforced by the fact that international remittance flow has grown by 650% in the last 24 years' time. Most notably, the volume of remittances has outstripped that of both official development assistance, ODA, and foreign direct investment, FDI, from developed to developing countries. It is therefore of utmost importance to facilitate remittance flow through official channels to maximize its development impacts. Fourth, the need for viewing migration from a human security lens is getting more pronounced than ever before. The acute vulnerabilities experienced by migrants stranded at border, deported to and detained in offshore locations, or left to perish without search and rescue efforts at seas are the brazen manifestation of policy responses that perpetuate systematic abuse and discrimination against migrants. It is rather ironic that most international human rights actors prefer to remain silent on the need for ratification of the International Convention on the Rights of Migrant Workers and their families by major destination countries. Fifth, the compounded effect of humanitarian crisis, health emergencies, climate change, and digital transformation on human mobility are likely to reshape global migratory trends in fundamental ways. While most of the movement would perhaps occur internally, some forms of displacement are bound to have cross-border implications. Thanks to the work of IOM and others, the particular issue of climate mobility is finally getting some traction. I thank Director General. She has taken note of this fact because climate change is the reality today. And when IOM was established, then climate change was absent. And in Bangladesh, because of the climate change, there are thousands, not thousands, millions of people are displaced internally, and also some people are displaced internationally in Bangladesh. That is the case in other countries. Distinguished audience, the WMR 2024 makes a compelling case about ever-growing number of forced displacement due to conflicts and violences. The Director General has mentioned how many people are displaced due to Russia-Ukraine war. 7 million people are displaced. Almost 40% of the total population of Ukraine are displaced in Europe and elsewhere because of this conflict. And you know what is happening in Gaza? Gaza has become a prison now, and these helpless people are persecuted. And over in that area, more than 10 million people have been displaced due to the conflict. And you know what is happening in Bangladesh? We are facing the challenges of forcibly displaced people from Myanmar. Now the number is about 1.3 million, not 1.2 million, because every year 35,000 newborn children. So every year it is increasing. And Bangladesh is an overpopulous country. The density of population in this country is the highest in the world. Per square kilometer, 1,260 people. This is the highest in the world. Still, we have given refuge. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was very generous to give refuge to these displaced people. But we are facing the challenges because of these people: law and order situation, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and the Rohingya camps have become breeding space for fanaticism and terrorism. I thank IOM Director General. She has visited Cox's Bazar, and with her own eyes, you have seen the situation there. Excellencies, it goes without saying that our nearly 12 million people are working in different countries, and they are playing very important role in our economy. And they are providing remittances, and we are number 8 remittance recipient country in the world, and 6th country from where number of population, in terms of the number of population are working abroad, we are number 6. We owe it to their individual toils, sacrifices, and success to make sure that global migration discourse are exemplified by knowledge products like WMR 2024. Place their issues, concerns, and priorities right at the center. I wish the World Migration Report 2024 the widest possible dissemination of success. And as IOM has chosen Bangladesh to launch the report, first ever launching of report outside Geneva, we shall work with you, and Bangladesh support to IOM will continue. Thanks to you all. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangladesh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. With this, we come to the end of the global launch of World Migration Report 2024. Let me thank you for your time and patience. I hope this will help us to put the migration narrative on right perspectives. Thanks to the Director General in particular. I was pleasantly surprised to hear the new narratives coming out under her leadership. Thank you, Madam. I now officially close the event. Thank you. No, I mean,